Greetings, family. This is IMAHKÜS Njinga Okofu Ababio, affectionately known as Mama Africa. Back again. We're going to deal with Chapter 6, Cleaving and Leaving, or as I call it, Cleaving and Leaving. I had a really wonderful time the other day. We went to a place called Gisenyi, and I had an opportunity to be on the waterfront. As you know, or may not know, I lived on the ocean, still do part-time, in Ghana for 30 years. And now I find myself living here in Rwanda, in the mountains. A stark difference, okay? And as they say here in Rwanda, Rwanda is a really fantastic place. They say that Rwanda is a country of 1,000 hills. But I say they lied. It's 2,000, okay? Everything here is a hill, all right? I don't care where you go. But I love it nonetheless. But I was just so happy. I was like a child. You know, I had an opportunity to sit at the ocean or the lake because we were at near the border of Congo. This lake separates Rwanda from Congo. But I was like a child. I felt so good. Put my hands in the water, my feet. I was just like, oh, I won't say I died and went to heaven. I went straight to heaven, okay? So today, excuse me, we're going to deal with Chapter 6, which is called Cleaving and Leaving. Ben and I had made several trips to Ghana within the next few years with other members of Bereshit Hebrew Israelite community. On one of our trips, we traveled to the Gambia where we spent 4 great days. The entire trip was not so great for me because I came down with sun poisoning after falling asleep on the beach, with the hot sun baking my brains. While Ben and the group moved around, I hung out at the hotel close to my bed and the toilet. Before I poisoned myself, I did see and experience the people who were great and culturally conscious. They wore their national dress, and sisters in long flowing boobas seemed to float down the road. Even at the river, washing their clothes, they were culturally attired. Very few people wore Western-style clothes and t-shirts. I loved it. This was a very sharp contrast from Ghana. And Ben loved it too. He really loved the Gambia. I could live here, he said wistfully. But we had already decided that Ghana was the place, or it had been decided for us. After 4 days, we headed back to Ghana via Ghana Airways, the Black Star Lines, as we called her. Relaxing, I was suddenly aroused by the excitement in Ben's voices. Ima, look at the pilot. Who does he look like? Who does he remind you of? But it was really hard for me to tell, for his back was turned to me. Suddenly, he slowly began to turn, as though he had been summoned. His face was round and black, and he smiled brightly, looking directly at us for a long moment before returning to his original position. Recognition kicked in with a jolt. Marcus Garvey? And he was flying the Black Star Line? We were too excited. It was as though confirmation had been given that we were doing the right thing in coming home to Africa. And our honorable ancestor and elder Marcus Messiah Garvey was taking us there. What greater sign could have been given It was like a seal of greater approval. We arrived in Ghana, but had decided earlier to stay behind after the rest of the group returned to America. It was also our first traumatic encounter with the Ghana Immigration Service. We had left Ghana to visit the Gambia, but we did not know that we needed another visa to re-enter Ghana. The immigration officer was terrible. He shouted at us, threatening to return us to America on the flight that night. No amount of pleading and explanation would satisfy him. He demanded $50 from each of us. But we really did not have it, and the rest of the group was going to be leaving the following day per their reservations. He did not care. He called the airlines that the group had scheduled to fly with, demanding we be put on the plane that very night. Where was this attitude coming from? In the midst of all this confusion, a white man walked up with similar problems, and he suddenly became so nice and helpful, smiling and bowing and scraping. Turning back to us, scowling, he said roughly, "Go to the airline office. You're leaving tonight." He then changed his face again and returned his attention to the white man. But when we arrived at the airline office, the man behind the counter said that he had never received a phone call, as the phone was out of order. And even if they weren't, we could not leave that night because the waiting list, which already had 23 people on it, was closed. We then returned to our brother with the news, which he accepted reluctantly. "You make sure you be here tomorrow," he growled. He then made us pay $10 each, and we went on our way. When we returned to Cape Coast, we went to see a friend of ours who was a lawyer and to find out what we had to do to remain in the country. After all, Ben and I were there to make final arrangements for returning home permanently. We were given an invitational letter from Nanenbra, the Omen Hen of Cape Coast, who had originally invited us to come home. Once the group left, we were on our own. It was during this time that Ben was asked by the elders of the village of Itri to be their Asafohene, warrior chief. One day, Ben was driving past the village of Itri and saw a group of people congregating. He thought they were having a church service, so he stopped and asked if he could join them. The people were delighted and asked him to have a seat in front with the other invited guests. However, it was not a church service. They were conducting a fundraiser to get electricity for their village. They needed someone to help them. Listening to their plight, Ben offered to assist in any way that he could. As he told them, "I don't know how much it's going to cost, but you find out how much it will cost, and I can tell you how and how much I can help you with." As legend has it, the village of Itri is a historic village dating back to 1468 when the Portuguese were building the Elmina Castle dungeons. A Ghanaian by the name of Itri Kwaku worked with the Portuguese and was the leader of the lime digging project located at the Sweet River and what is known today as Itri. Laborers were required to dig out crabs that were found in the river and attach to the aspura vines which grow in the river. The crab shells are then burned and ground into a white powder, lime, that is used to make cement. Slaves and free men stayed for years, working hard and supplying the Portuguese with the necessary lime and manpower to complete their task. After the completion of the Elmina Castle dungeons in 1482, Kwaku, who was not a slave, settled in with some of his men and started families. and began farming and developing the village of Itri, which bears his name today. During the early days of travel between Elmina and the Ogwa area, Ogwa means marketplace and is today known as Cape Coast. There was no bridge to cross the Sweet River to connect the two areas. So Kwaku transported people back and forth by boat for marketing and other business. Itri was adopted as part of Elmina and eventually became one of the first fishing villages developed in Elmina. After Ben offered to help the village, the elders asked him to be their chief. He told them that he would think about it and let them know. When he came back to the house, he told me what had happened and said that he would pray on it before responding to the elders. He also wanted to talk with Kohen in America, but attempts to get through by phone failed. Ben was very excited and the spirit was so strong on him, he decided to accept the offer made by the elders. It was during this time that his name was changed to Nana Akufo Itri Kwaku I. I was unable to stay for his ceremony, for I had to return to the United States to take care of some other business, but I left him with specific instructions. Honey, find us some land on the ocean. You know that that's where I want to live. So look hard, look good, and find me a place. Lo and behold, just before I returned to the United States, Ben had located our land. When the elders of Itri asked him to be their Safohen, they also gave him a piece of land. It was located on the Gulf of Guinea, high up in some rocks, with a picturesque view of the Elmina Castle dungeons in the distance. I left for the United States to prepare for our return home. I was ecstatic, to say the least. When I broke the news to our brothers and sisters at Bereshith, some of them appeared not to be very happy at Nana's decision to become a chief. After all, we had agreed at one of our congregational meetings that we should work with the other Asafo chiefs in Cape Coast to live up to their responsibilities before taking on anything else. However, I explained that Nana had been caught up and excited about the prospect of becoming a chief, and his attempts to reach Bereshith before he made his decision failed. So he moved ahead. Additionally, as a group, we had been visiting Ghana since 1987 and were always talking about going home, but no one was really ready to make that move. Some of them were still talking about buying property in America. We had also wanted to buy another house, but Nana and I just weren't interested in America anymore. It was time to go home, so we moved forward. We informed our children, family, friends of our decision. Needless to say, most of them were none too happy about our decision to go to Africa. What's in Africa? They wanted to know. And why would anybody in their right mind want to go there? What about the wild animals? Africans don't even like us. And so on, and so on, and so on. The negative media hype, Tarzan movies, and other unfavorable stereotypes had done an excellent job in turning our people away from their heritage. They didn't like the idea at all. In fact, they were angry with us, for they felt that we were deserting the family and going too far away from them. As much as we tried to explain, the less they wanted to understand. However, our eldest son, Kendu, was more agreeable with our decision and excited about the whole thing. He even spoke about joining us one day and getting a job cooking in a hotel as a chef. The girls, on the other hand, saw it differently. But there was nothing we could do to change their minds. It was a little sad, for we wanted them to understand and be happy for us, to appreciate the significance of being able to return to one's ancestral homeland. We were going forward to build a place for the family. For whoever decided to come, they would find their family house in Ghana. It was time to go. In June 1990, we repatriated home to Mother Africa. Nana left first, and I followed after him, staying behind to help some of our brothers and sisters at Bereshith Cultural Institute who were preparing for their annual Family Day festival. Believe me, I was itching bad to go to Ghana, but they asked us several times to at least stay until African Family Day. Can't do it, Nana said. Nah. Maybe there was a hidden agenda and folks were planning something we didn't know about. Plus, they needed all the help they could get, I argued. African Family Day was a huge undertaking. It was growing each year, with this being their 4th year of observation and celebration. Besides, I stated to Nana, it's only a 2-week difference from our original departure date. We'll see a lot of old friends and turn this African Family Day into a big bon voyage party for us. No way, he continued. Nana was adamant. I'm out of here, baby. Come hell or high water. So just say goodbye to the folks for me. And he never broke his stride. Baby, I've been waiting for this for too long. I'll see you when you get to Ghana. And off he went. Without me. A closed subject, never to be mentioned again. I was so sad taking him to the airport that day, but I couldn't let him see that. I tried joking. 2 weeks will pass so fast. I really do need a few more days with Moms, which I really did, because she is still royally pissed off that I'm going to Africa and taking you with me, I said. My mother refused to accept that relocating to Ghana was a joint decision and not just my idea. You're always talking about moving somewhere else, she'd say. What's wrong with what you've got? You've wandered all over South America and the Caribbean, wandering around like a damn gypsy. And besides, she continued, you weren't born in no damn Africa, and on and on and on. After you and Ben got married, I thought you would settle down and start acting like someone with good sense. But no, not you. Now you're moving way the hell to Ghana? Sometimes we actually argued, and that made me feel terrible. If you wanted to go to Africa, that was fine. But why do you have to take Ben with you? He's my husband, I said. And besides, he wants to go. He has wanted to go for a long time, and now he has the opportunity. You can't blame him, I said. I don't blame him. I blame you, she cried. So why won't you come to Africa with us, I pleaded. You could live like a queen off your pension, no mortgage payments, cooling off by the ocean, no master charge, a visa, no car note. I ain't lost nothing in Africa, my mother lamented. Y'all going to your so-called roots in Africa. Right here in the United States is my roots. Thank you, ma'am. And she wouldn't budge an inch. So with all that and Nana leaving without me, I was trying really hard to be good and strong. As we were waiting at the airport for his departure, we reasoned together, laughed, and joked. When I occasionally looked a little melancholy, he said, this was your decision, baby, so you might as well cheer up and be happy. I'll meet you at the airport on the other side. He was laughing and grinning like a big child trying to keep a secret until takeoff. Once he left, I let my true feelings show. Real sad, hot tears running down my cheeks. After a good cry, I turned it loose, and the 2 weeks literally flew by. In fact, I was having the greatest time. I played Peanut Butter, the African American clown act, during the African Family Day parade. I was dressed up in my huge bright red wig, orange kente cloth jumpsuit with a kente cloth strip with buttons of Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Mickey Mouse adorning it draped across my shoulder. As I had the children's attention, I used this to teach children about their history while we were having fun. I was also wearing size 18 Nike sneakers. I had long gold eyelashes and a big rubber nose, but I didn't paint my face white, for it was important for the children to know that I was an African. Additionally, there were very few black clowns in the country. They were mostly white folks. To top my act off, I carried my ghetto blaster, or boombox, as those humongous radios were called. I sang and partied hardy. It had been a long I had been doing this sort of thing for a long time, for several years before moving to Ghana. Everyone naturally asked for Nana Ben. When I told one of our friends that Nana was gone and sent his goodbyes, he said, "Go, brother man, go," and shot his fist in the sky. "I'm out of here tomorrow," I said, and he really started hollering. He told everybody. It almost wasn't necessary to make a public announcement. Word spread like wildfire. By the time I was called to the stage, there was a party going on. Our friends who had asked us to stay for African Family Day called me to the microphone and made a presentation of a plaque of appreciation and $75. For about 15 minutes, I said goodbye to friends, evoking African hoops and hollering and laughter. When I told the crowd how Nana had responded when we asked him to delay his departure, there was the party of parties going on. "Aman la," they shouted, a Zulu word meaning power to the people. "Aman la." The thunderous response and the chanting continued. The field rocked, the drummers played, and the folks danced. Happy, happy, happy. A few people even put something in my pocket. One girlfriend quipped, "I figure y'all could use the money. Can't eat no kente cloth, baby," she said laughingly as I thanked her. Happy, happy, happier. It was almost departure time. I hoped and prayed that my mother would be a little less pissed off with me now that it was really time to go. My friends arrived around 3 p.m. to take me to the airport. My mother was sitting on the porch, arms folded solidly across her chest like Chief Sitting Bull, and an angry look on her face. As my friends approached and greeted her, "Good evening, Miss Hines," she grunted something, barely acknowledging them. Sensing something was amiss, they quickly returned to their van to wait for me. "I'm leaving, Fatty," which was an affectionate term that we called my mother. "Please don't be mad at me, but I've got to go. I love you, and I'll write you." "Yeah," she replied. The stoic expression on her face never changed. She was real angry. "Go on then. You ain't no African. Go on then. Go on back to Africa, since that's more important to you than me." I could feel another argument brewing, but I wouldn't give in to that. Think about what I said. Think about coming to Ghana with us. Nana will even come back to escort you on the plane. I was trying so hard to be cheerful, but her expression never changed. "I love you, Fatty," I told her as I walked slowly and sadly to the waiting van. Boy, was she still pissed off with me. It wasn't like there was no one here with her. My sister was nearby. My lazy nephew would move back into the house once I left. My aunts, my mother's brother, and a host of friends had assured her that she only needed to call them if she needed anything. They would help her to keep my apartment rented. We owned a two-family house. And whatever else, none of that mattered to her, no matter what anyone said. As we pulled away from the house, I saw tears running down her round brown cheeks, her full lips in a big pout. I almost turned back, starting to cry and feeling a little hurt inside because she was not happy about our decision. And I'd wished I could have left on a better note. I almost turned back, starting to cry, feeling a little hurt inside because she was not happy about our decision. And I'd wished I could have left on a better note. But the pull to come home was stronger and more gripping than biological, if you can understand what I mean. It was spiritual. It was the ancestors calling. Come on home, girl. Ain't nothing to be scared of. Been waiting a long time. Come on, girl. Come on home. It was time to go home again. My sister and my niece also rode with me to the airport. Don't worry about your mother. I'm here, my sister chided. She doesn't even want you to go, that's all. Hell, I don't want you to go either, but she'll be all right. When we left America, Nana and I had offered my sister our share of the house. Just take over the mortgage and utilities, we told her, and do whatever is necessary to maintain the house. Besides, she'd be closer to our mother, and she'd have a built-in babysitter, because Fatty never went anywhere except to Pathmark Supermarket and the fish market. That was her monthly game that she and Nana played. You couldn't bribe her out of the house otherwise. My sister lived deep in the South Bronx. Ghetto blasters, radio big boxes playing all night, the Jamaican brothers blasting their music through huge concert-sized speakers on the sidewalk and from their apartment windows, guys rushing up to stop cars to sell $5 bags of marijuana, gold, mole, or dot, cocaine, smoke, dope, crack, you name it. Niggas with an attitude, shooting at one another any time of the day or night, not caring who got shot. Children, elders, their mothers, the dogs, they just did not care. And calling a policeman could get you killed by mistake. And then there was the attempted sexual assault on my sister's 12-year-old daughter in the elevator of her building. My sister had more locks on her door than a bank vault, and still the thieves got in. You had to contend with alternate side of the street parking between certain times of the day, and my sister was always getting tickets for parking violations. I thought those were sufficient reasons for wanting to change one's location. Plus, someone was going to give you an equal share in a fine house, fully furnished if you so desired. There was no hidden cost, just the shared cost of the mortgage for as long as she wanted to live in the house. But I was wrong. My sister said she was buying her apartment now that her building in the middle of hellfire was going co-op. So we rented out our apartment to strangers to cover the cost of our share of the mortgage and other expenses. We even installed $5,000 worth of iron gates to the doors and windows of our house to satisfy my mother, who was refusing to live in the house any longer or allow us to leave unless we did so. But still, my mother was pissed off. I looked back no more, but that was the last time I'd see her alive. Less than 5 months later, my mother was dead.